A 9/9 is an absolutely massive creature, so if you can get it on the battlefield, it often takes over the game. Today happens to be September 9th, written as 9/9, so I thought it would be a good time to take a look at creatures with this stat line. In all, there are 36 cards that are 9/9s, or that are capable of making 9/9 creature tokens, and in this video we'll look at the 10 that have left the biggest impact on competitive Magic. This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. Use the links in the description to visit their store. Before we get started, here's a quick reminder on how I score cards in these videos. I use a scoring system where cards are awarded 2 points for a first tier top 8, events like Pro Tours, and 1 point for a second tier top 8, events like regional championships. At number 10, it's Kuro Pit Lord. For 6 generic and 3 black, he makes you pay 4 black every upkeep or you have to sacrifice him, and you can pay 1 life to give target creature -1/-1 until end of turn. While the casting cost and upkeep cost are steep, if you have the life, this 9/9 can allow you to wipe your opponent's entire board. And the 1 point Kuro has came in a deck that never had to worry about the casting cost or upkeep cost anyway, because it was played in a Legacy sneak attack deck. That enchantment allows you to put a creature into play for 1 red and it gains haste, but you sacrifice it at the end of your turn. So with Kuro, you pay only 1 mana and swing with a 9/9 that likely wipes the entire board. You can see why that would be pretty insane. That said, it never caught on as a long-term fixture in sneak attack decks, and that's why it only has a single point. At number 9, it's Triplicate Titan. For 9 generic, it comes with Flying, Vigilance, and Trample, and when it dies, it makes 3/3/3 Golem creature tokens, each with one of those keyword abilities. So you get a huge body up front, and even if your opponent kills it, you get 3 nice bodies. It can really put your opponent in a bind. Triplicate Titan is from Commander 2021 and has never been printed in a standard legal set, so the only 60 card formats it's ever been legal in are Legacy and Vintage. Its points have all come in Legacy decks that use Goblin Welder. Reanimating the Titan early is a big deal since your opponent has to use very particular removal to avoid getting destroyed. Triplicate Titan hasn't really stuck around in those styles of decks though. There's just too much exile removal these days for Triplicate Titan to be great, since you're far from guaranteed to get those Golem tokens when it gets removed. At number 8, it's Kozilek the Broken Reality. When you cast it, up to 2 target players each manifest 2 cards from their hands. Manifesting from your hand means you put a card into play face down and it's a colorless 2/2, and if it's a creature, you can turn it face up for its mana cost. For each card manifested this way, you draw a card. Kozilek also gives other colorless creatures you control +3/+2. So, breaking it down, for 9 mana you get a 9/9 and 2 5/4s and you draw 2 cards too, provided you had the 2 cards to manifest. Giving your opponent the manifests is often worth it too, as it can not only disrupt them, you also draw a card for each card they manifest, plus theirs aren't getting Kozilek's buff, so you're going to be in a better position. Because he's from Modern Horizons 3, the only 60 card formats he's ever been legal in are Modern Legacy and Vintage, and he's already seen a bit of play in Modern Eldrazi Tron decks. These decks use Eldrazi Temple plus the Tron lands to quickly power out strong colorless creatures, and Kozilek is obviously a good fit for the deck. Kozilek is likely to gain more points in the future, but it definitely hasn't had a huge impact on Modern either. At number 7, it's Krosan Colossus. For 6 generic and 3 green, it's a 9/9, and it also has Morph, which means you can play it face down for 3 generic mana. And if you do that, it's a colorless 2/2, and you can turn it face up at any time for its Morph cost, which in this case is 6 generic and 2 green. Obviously enough, the Colossus is not a great card, but it was useful in one very particular extended deck back in 2002. This deck, called Angry Ghoul, was all about dumping your entire deck in the graveyard with Hermit Druid. At that point, you'll have both a Sutured Ghoul and Anger in there, which is where the deck gets its name. Then you reanimate Sutured Ghoul, which will have haste because of Anger, and swing with it to win. The Ghoul's stats are based on creatures in the graveyard that you exile from it, and Krosan Colossus' 9/9 stat line could help make the Ghoul absolutely massive and make it easier to win in a single swing, but Krosan Colossus hasn't put up any top 8 since 2002. At number 6, it's Phyrexian Dragon Engine and Mishra Claimed by Gix. Obviously neither of these are 9/9s, but bear with me here for a moment. The engine is 3 generic mana for a 2/2 with double strike, and when it enters the battlefield from your graveyard, you can discard your hand, and if you do, you draw 3 cards. It also has Unearth for 3 generic and 2 red, which means it comes back from the graveyard with haste, and you exile it at the end of your turn. Obviously, this means you get that ETB ability. The engine, on its own, is a pretty nice creature between the solid stats and the ability to reload your hand, but it has more upside than that because it can also meld with Mishra claimed by Gix. Mishra is a 3/5 for 2 generic, a black and a red, and whenever you attack, each opponent loses X life, and you gain X, where X is the number of attacking creatures. Then if you control both Mishra and Phyrexian Dragon Engine, you exile them and meld them into Mishra lost to Phyrexia, which enters tapped and attacking. This means you flip over both of these cards, and each of them has half of Mishra lost to Phyrexia on its other face. So you put them together. And that's when the 9/9 comes in, because you need both the engine and Mishra in your deck to pull it off. I only awarded them points for instances where they are in decks together, because it wouldn't make sense to count all of their points for a list that's specifically about 9/9s, and the engine has been played a lot on its own too. Anyway, it takes a lot of work to meld them, although the Dragon Engine's Unearth can help it happen more consistently, but once you do get this insane 9/9, it comes with a crazy enter or attack trigger where you choose 3 of the following. Target opponent discards 2 cards, Mishra does 3 damage to any target, destroy target artifact or planeswalker, creatures you control gain menace and trample until end of turn, creatures you don't control get -1/-1 until end of turn, or create 2 tapped Power Stone tokens. It doesn't really matter what 3 you choose, you get insane value, but menace and trample will often make Mishra unblockable, the bolt effect will kill something, and -1/-1 to your opponent's whole board probably kills a few things too. The engine and Mishra were played together a little bit in both Pioneer and Standard. In Standard, it was played in Rakdos artifact decks, and at one point in Pioneer came in Jund midrange. The two haven't been played together at all since 2022, though. At number 5, it's Draco. For 16 mana, it's a 9/9 with flying, and it has Domain, which means it has effects that care about how many basic land types among lands you control. It costs 2 generic less for each basic land type among lands you control, and at the beginning of your upkeep you sacrifice Draco unless you pay 10 generic, but that cost is reduced by 2 generic for each basic land type among lands you control. In other words, if you have all 5 basic land types, you pay 6 generic to cast it and no mana during your upkeep. Draco is a pretty tough card to abuse if you're actually planning on putting it into play, but kind of like Crows and Colossus, this huge creature's value comes precisely from the fact that it has some big numbers printed on the card. Its first top 8 came in Extended in 2022, where it was played in one of the jankiest decks to ever top 8 a major event. This deck was called Draco Explosion, and it was all about using Erratic Explosion and revealing Draco from the top of your library to do 16 to your opponent. While full-on Draco Explosion decks never showed up again after 2002, it was used as an alternate win condition in Prison decks in 2000 and 2008, including in Enduring Ideal decks, which usually tried to win using Form of the Dragon, but Draco Explosion could speed up the clock. Draco hasn't put up any points since 2008. At number 4, it's Demon of Death's Gate. For 6 generic and 3 black, it comes with flying and trample, but it also has an alternate casting cost. You can pay 6 life and sacrifice 3 black creatures instead. The demon doesn't feel great if you cast it the normal way, but if you can go the alternate route and get it into play super early, it can be pretty powerful. Its points all came in the sideboard of black-red vampire decks while it was in Standard. These decks were mostly loaded up with small, cheap creatures, but this made the deck super vulnerable against Valakut decks, which could turn every mountain into a lightning bolt. Those decks didn't run any removal beyond Valakut, so you were more than happy to throw away 3 small vampires early to slam this demon on the board and quickly kill them. One of the vampires in the deck also happened to be Bloodghast, making the sacrifice pretty painless. Demon of Death's Gate hasn't gained any points since 2011, though. At number 3, it's Kiora the Crashing Wave. This Planeswalker costs 2 generic, a green, and a blue, and she starts with 2 loyalty. She makes it on the list as a result of her -5, which gives you an emblem that makes a 9/9 blue Kraken creature token at the beginning of your instep. She's also got a +1 that prevents all damage that would be dealt to and dealt by target permanent opponent controls, and a -1 that lets you draw a card and you can play an additional land that turn. Her +1 does a pretty good job of protecting her from your opponent's best creature, which makes it more likely you get to that emblem. The -1 is also a pretty strong effect, as going up a card and potentially getting ahead in mana can be pretty great. Kiora was played in Control decks in both Block and Standard, where getting to her emblem and winning the game with it was pretty doable. However, she hasn't gained any points since rotating out of Standard. At number 2, it's Terastodon. It costs 6 generic and 2 green, and when it enters the battlefield, you can destroy up to 3 non-creature permanents. And for each permanent destroyed that way, its controller gets a 3/3 elephant. In other words, you can use the Terastodon to get rid of problem-opposing permanents, and/or sacrifice some of your own permanents to give yourself elephants. Notably, it can even hit lands. All of that's pretty great, although the 8 mana Terastodon demands from you is no small thing, so you need a very particular deck to get Terastodon going. As a result, it's seen significant multi-format success, but it's never really gone wild in a single format either. In Standard, it found some modest success in ramp decks. In Extended, it was cheated into play with Hypergenesis. In Modern, it's been played in big mana decks as well as Reanimator, and most recently, it's been showing up in Indomitable Creativity decks. In Legacy, it's been used in Sneak and Show, which uses Show and Tell and Sneak Attack to put it into play, as well as in that format's Reanimator decks, and in Vintage, sometimes it shows up in Oath of Druids. Terastodon is going to keep being cheated into play in a variety of ways, as its ability to be disruptive and or be a win condition is pretty unrivaled. It even has a chance at eventually catching the number 1 card on the list. For now, though, that card is Zacama Primal Calamity. For 6 generic, a red, a green, and a white, it comes with Vigilance, Reach, and Trample, and when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, it untaps all your lands. And that's important, because you can use those lands to use 3 activated abilities. For 2 generic and a red, it can do 3 to a creature. For 2 generic and a green, it can destroy an artifact or enchantment. And for 2 generic and a white, it can gain you 3 life. It's kind of the opposite of Terastodon. Instead of gaining lots of points in a variety of formats, it's gained all of its points in a single deck in a single format, and that deck is Pioneer Lotus Field, a deck which has been on top of the format for the last few years. This deck looks to tap and untap Lotus Field a bunch of times to ramp into crazy stuff, and obviously Zacama is both something crazy to ramp into and a card that untaps all your lands, which makes it even easier for you to use those powerful activated abilities. Zacama is usually in the deck's sideboard, but it's easily fetched by Mastermind's Acquisition when it's the best win condition for you. It's going to keep gaining points in Pioneer going forward. Terastodon is being played in more formats right now than Zacama is, but Zacama is a fixture in a deck that's been successful in Pioneer for so long that it may be secure at the number 1 spot on this list. So those are the top 10 9/9s in Magic the Gathering. If you want to own any of these huge creatures, check out the description, where you can find a direct Card Kingdom link for each card that appeared in the video. If you want to make sure you catch future videos, don't forget to subscribe. If you want to catch up on past videos, including many more that look at creature stat lines, you should see some playlists on the screen shortly. Thanks for watching.